tens of thousands of repressed people. This grief has touched every single Estonian family, and the memory of this is being passed on to children and grandchildren.
Ukrainians are fighting the war for all of us, and this has to be understood by everyone in the European Union.
There is a big battle between democratic world and dictatorship. And that's what we have to bear in mind.
We understand that that in order to have perfect control over our destiny, it's not enough that Ukraine would just regain its territorial integrity. We need to go further.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine Influence, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Course. My name is Alexandra Tsikhanovska, and today we take a chance to talk about one of the most reliable allies and friends that Ukraine has in the face of the full-scale Russian war, Estonia. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to our channel to stay tuned. Estonia has been firmly supporting Ukraine and other countries that have been targeted by Russian imperial policy, such as Georgia, since the very beginning. Having deep knowledge of the nature of the Russian regime and what its occupation entails, Estonia was ready to speak up even when many other states were still pursuing a course to appease the Russian Federation. Now this balance has fortunately shifted, but it is worthwhile to remember that Estonia contributed tremendously to this very important shift. Our first guest, Artur Aukon, the project head expert at the Estonian Center for International Development, will tell us more.
If we talk about the military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, then Estonia's per capita contribution really exceeds the amount of aid from other countries. And there is nothing surprising. Estonia, as one of the countries occupied by the Soviet Union, remembers well how it happened in 1941 and 1945. Tens of thousands of repressed people. This grief has touched every single Estonian family, and the memory of this is being passed on to children and grandchildren. On the other hand, Estonia has never had any doubts about the aggressive nature of the Putin's regime. Our politicians spoke about it both during the aggression against Georgia in 2008 and during the occupation of Crimea in 2014. But unfortunately, it took thousands of corpses found at Bucha, Mariupol and Izum for the countries of the Western Europe to realize that we are not talking about the local military conflict. We are talking about the large-scale war in Europe. And this understanding already exists in Brussels, Paris and Berlin. And the recent statement of the head of the European Commission, Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen, is indicative. She said that the European Union would do everything to make Russia lose this war. But what is more important is the military assistance from Britain and the United States. Its dimensions are colossal, and even more funds will be allocated for the restoration of the Ukrainian economy after the end of this war. Just because Ukraine has always been a part of the European family and stays forever in our hands. Slava Ukraini!
One of the drivers behind a strong response, not just from the Estonian government, but also from the Estonian society as a whole, is that for many, too many, Russian war has become personal. Tina Ilsen, expert on the countries of the Eastern Partnership, shares the passionate message of understanding to Ukraine, but also to the whole world.
Hello, my name is Tina Ilsen. I've been working with Ukraine for the past 20 years. I'm proud to call myself a friend of Ukrainians and to have many friends there. And in there, I'm not unique. I think all of our small nation, everyone has a personal contact, personal story, and personal humbleness towards Ukrainians. They are fighting for all of us. and we need to help them to win this war. For us, it's personal, as I said. It's personal because finally there cannot be any more naiveness around when it comes to Russian Federation, something which we as Estonians never had. Even in the early 90s, where there was a brief hope of, or vibe of somewhat democratic development possibility, it very soon became clear that it's not real. It will never be real. And we watched with, how shall I put it, surprise towards the naiveness of some of the countries who built economic ties with Russia, hoping that this would turn them to the democratic course, when it was obvious for us that this is the opposite. How can you build dependency with chauvinists, with a country who has no care for their own people, let alone the others? We need to speak about it more, even though recently we were all told by the head of European Commission that she hopes that Baltics and Poland and other Eastern European countries would have been heard earlier. But now this is it. There is no possibility anymore for Russian Federation to hide behind any empty words towards democracy. And in Estonia, we stand united. I don't know anyone who has no personal touch with the current situation, who has not done something, contributed something, and if speaking up or out or loud about the realities of behind the Russian Federation's mindsets, this is the very least we can do, all of us collectively. We have united together for Ukraine and with Ukraine. No internal conflicts or giving up some of the comforts in the coming winter has led us to, even for the moment, think that how humble we are, because Ukrainians are fighting the war for all of us. And this has to be understood by everyone in European Union, for all of us. Ukraine is not far. Ukraine is in the middle of Europe. We are all concerned, involved with anything which influences Ukraine from the security point of view, economic point of view, but also human values point of view. We all look at each other mesmerized. How can something like this happen in first century? Well, Russian Federation does not live the 21st century. They live in a state of mind of lost greatness, which they now, with undescribable means, are trying to prove to the world. Ukrainians have now the most unbelievable situation for 6 months nobody could have imagined. And for that, we have to bow to them and do everything what is in our power to help them get the motivation going, because this is something they will be, for us, the ones who will end the evil in Europe. Slava Ukraini.
One of the key values of Ukrainian society is freedom. That, along with the desire to preserve our sovereignty, finds very strong empathy with the people of Estonia, many of whom have a lot of friends, colleagues, and even relatives in Ukraine. We invite our next speaker, Ando Kiveberg, to elaborate further on what makes Ukrainians stand up to the aggressor, how it correlates with the Estonian people, and how this war is actually much bigger than it might initially seem.
Slava Ukraini! Heroyam Slava! My name is Ando Kiviberg. I've been a mayor of the city of Viljandi, the sixth largest city in Estonia. And I've been working for the Ukrainian local governments for 3 years, helping them, supporting them, to go through the reforms and help them to improve the society, infrastructure, etc., etc. That's why I'm quite familiar what's going on and what was going on in Ukraine before this awful war. And I'm still in connection with those people with whom we worked for all these years. What I saw and what I felt that Ukrainians made their choice already 2008, and then for very seriously 2014. They choose to be a nation. They choose to be a free, democratic country. And that decision didn't fit for the Russian Federation, unfortunately. Run by the people who are thinking that the best way to solve the problems is violence, and the best system to rule is dictatorship. So actually what's going on right now, it's not only a battle between two nations, one smaller and one much bigger. There is a big battle between democratic world and dictatorship. And that's what we have to bear in mind. It's not just Ukraine, my dear friends. It's about Western values, democratic values, open society, etc., etc., etc. And we, Estonians, we lost our independence once. It was 1939, when Soviet Union and Nazi Germany agreed to share this part of Europe between those two. So we can see and we can understand that Ukrainians are right now pretty much in the same position, in the same situation. And they are fighting not just for their independence and their lives, they are fighting for all of us. Because if Ukraine would fall, sooner or later, all the Western Europe will fall as well. That's for sure, my dear friends. So we have to support Ukraine. We have to fight this fight together, and we have to win. That's all we need to do.
Showing solidarity with Ukraine in these turbulent times, Estonia draws on its own history of relations with Russia that we have already addressed today. Our next speaker, a renowned Estonian director Ilmar Raag, will tell us more about how the perception of Russia has changed and how the evil unpunished is the evil that will return.
The suspicion toward Russia has always been part of Estonian identity narrative. It stems from the fact that Estonia gained its independence through the war against Soviet Russia, and we lost our independence again against the same Soviet Russia during the Second World War. However, after 1991, when Estonia regained its freedom, our attitude to Russia has been slightly schizophrenic. From one side, there is a narrative of danger. Estonian Army and Army Reserve Voluntary Organization Eesti Kaitseliit have always expected that in the case of eventual war, they would fight against Russia. Estonia was very worried during the Russian riots and cyber attacks in 2007 in Estonia. and we were alarmed in 2008 when Russian-Georgian war broke out. But in 2014, when Russia started its aggression against Ukraine, it was obvious that there is a pattern to be repeated. Russia has imperial ambitions and it is attacking its neighbors. On the other hand, Estonia wanted to have another narrative. We didn't want to be on the international arena this one-topic country who is always hysterical about this terrible danger that is coming from Russia. Instead, we wanted to deliver the message that Estonia is a perfectly safe place for international investments, because we are very pragmatical in our relationship to Russia, and even to sometimes ambivalent situations. I think we were quite successful in that. However, you can see that there is a contradiction. You cannot have at the same time the terrible Russian danger and the safe place for investments. This year, this dilemma was resolved. Of the 24th of February, nobody in the whole world would believe that Estonia is a perfectly safe place for international investments. Furthermore, everybody is kind of expecting that if Ukraine would lose this war, then the Baltic countries can be next. This has created an extraordinary surge of support toward Ukraine in Estonia, both on the state and civil society level. I think that per capita terms, Estonia is one of the top countries in the world that is supporting Ukraine. However, we understand that that in order to have perfect control over our destiny, it's not enough that Ukraine would just regain its territorial integrity. We need to go further. We need to degrade Russian capacity to repeat this kind of attacks. Because unless the whole world would believe that Russia is unable to attack again, Estonia would never become a safe place for foreign investments. This is what the world would believe then. I don't know how this degrading of Russian military capacities can be achieved. How should be done? Should it be done that the big empire would be split up, or the nuclear weapons taken away? Because as owner of nuclear weapons, Russia has clearly demonstrated that its lack of responsibility. But today we know one thing: whatever are the instruments of this ultimate goal, it starts with the first step, and this is the Ukrainian victory in this war.
You've been watching the special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Course, Ukraine in Flames. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In the description to this episode, you can find information on how you personally can help Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. Remember that everything is going to be Ukraine.